A very good Tuesday morning to you from all here at ITV1, as it's time for us to join GMTV.
We're going to have a sensational night. We're going to celebrate long and hard for about 2 weeks.
Getting ready to party, the Ashes return to England's green and pleasant land. Good morning, this is the News Hour on GMTV.
Yes, it's 6 o'clock on Tuesday the 13th of September.
On the programme this morning, tens of thousands of cricket fans all line the streets of London this morning to celebrate England's triumph over Australia. Jonathan Swain's outside the Players' Hotel in the City of London. Richard Gaisford's in Trafalgar Square, where the team's triumphant tour will finish.
Also today, amid scenes of panic buying at the petrol pumps, we're asking if you support the impending fuel protests later this week.
And it's hard to believe, but there are already queues this morning. That is the scene at Newport in South Wales. Motorists queuing up to buy petrol. If you're behind them, call 09068 745 745. If you think they're a waste of time, call 09068 745 746.
That's the petrol protest, that is.
Oh, the petrol protest, yes of course, as opposed to whether it's a waste of time going and filling your car up.
Yeah.
Later on, I get to fulfil my wildest dreams, running away to join the circus.
Glad you added that. And talking of fulfilling dreams, do you fancy your very own home in the sun?
You could be waking up to that view every morning. Join me later, I'll tell you how.
Checkers, well, Claire has been gazing skywards. Whither the weather, Claire?
Hello, good. Well, that's very good, isn't it?
Shakespearean.
Yeah, is it? Oh, right.
Well, whither the weather, I don't know. Yeah.
Very clever indeed. Well done, Penny, this morning. It's
Thanks.
Tuesday morning. She's using long words already. Hello, good morning. The weather is really tricky today. We're seeing a lot of heavy rain across Scotland, gale force winds. It's going to cause a lot of problems across western Scotland, but there could be flooding today. We could actually see up to 4 inches of rain across the western side of Scotland. This rain gradually clearing away southwards. You can see for England and Wales, summer is still with us. It's not actually going to last over the next few days as the rain gradually sinks southwards. But look at these wind speeds, very strong indeed. Sunshine in the south, temperatures 24 Celsius, 75 Fahrenheit. Penny.
Thanks very much, Claire. Now, it may have taken 16 years, but this morning, England's cricketers are celebrating after winning back the Ashes. Jonathan Swain's outside the hotel in the City of London, where the team are staying. Jonathan, any sightings of them yet?
Good morning to you, Penny. We've even done better than that. We're actually inside the hotel this morning, and the players were at the bar just in the last hour or so. They've now moved up to the penthouse bar at the top of the hotel, so they're certainly making the most of the celebrations. I don't think they're even going to bother going to bed tonight, because it's 6 o'clock in the morning. Expect them any minute to come through that door and into the breakfast room here, which you can see has been decked out with the St George's Cross. And when they do sit down and have their breakfast at the table, well, these are the headlines that we could only dream about at the start of the year. They're ours. The Ashes, have come to England for the first time since 1987. And last night we were with the team as they came into the hotel for a quick change, rushed straight back out again, went to a central London club where they certainly had a few drinks and, as I say, only came back within the last few hours. And when they come down to have breakfast, Penny, I just hope they have plenty of coffee. They've certainly got a very busy day ahead of them later on.
What have they got planned?
Well, Penny, there's a celebratory parade on an open-top bus through the City of London this morning. They'll start off from the Mansion House at around 10 past 11 this morning. The Mansion House is just around the corner from here. Then they'll drive through Cannon Street, St Paul's, Fleet Street and the Strand. It's also worth bearing in mind that the women's cricket team will also be on the second bus as well, because they took the Ashes from Australia earlier on this year. And then the two teams will end up at Trafalgar Square at around 12:30 from where Richard Gaisford is this morning. Morning to you, Richard.
Yes, good morning, Jonathan. The riggers have been putting up the stages, the sound systems and the giant screens here in Trafalgar Square all night. The crowd will be shown highlights of this Ashes series to whip them up into a frenzy. Of course, we've seen huge celebrations here over the last few years for the Rugby World Cup squad, the returning Olympians, the Olympic bid. We think this is going to be bigger than that. Thousands of people packed in to see Michael Vaughan hold up that very tiny Ashes urn. They're going to need these big screens just to see it on the stage here behind me. After they've been here for about half an hour or so, we think they're going to head down to Downing Street, where it's likely they're going to have a private meeting with the Prime Minister, and then off to Lord's for a ceremony returning the urn to Lord's for safekeeping for the next 2 years. Penny and John.
Thanks very much.
Let's catch up on the rest of the news. Here's Amanda.
John, thank you. Good morning. Motorists are being urged not to panic buy ahead of planned fuel tax protests, as queues of up to an hour are reported at some petrol stations. Some garages are warning they may run out of fuel if demand continues at the same rate. Protesters from the fuel lobby have given ministers until today to meet them or face 3 days of demonstrations starting tomorrow. A post-mortem has revealed a teenage boy found dead in Berkshire on Sunday died from a slash to his throat. 16-year-old Stephen Bayliss was found with the body of his 14-year-old neighbour Tawood Nadal near a popular picnic spot in Wokingham. An 18-year-old local man arrested on Sunday night is still being questioned by police. There have been more violent clashes in Belfast. Loyalist petrol bombers attacked a police station in the city last night. Emma Louise Johnston is there. Emma Louise, good morning to you. It looks like the police are powerless to stop the violence.
Good morning, Amanda. Well, with this renewed appetite for violence, the police really do have a lot on their plate. Now, overnight, police officers came under attack from petrol bombs and fireworks in south, east, west and north Belfast. And there, a police officer was knocked unconscious when he was hit in the head with a brick. For a third night in a row, cars were hijacked and set alight. Several main roads and the M2 motorway were closed during the trouble. And ATO were called to North Belfast to deal with a pipe bomb. Now, police have seized crates of petrol bombs and paint bombs, and they arrested 25 people throughout the city during the night. Now, of course, this all started on Saturday when an Orange Order parade was rerouted away from a Catholic area, and the worrying thing is that with no quick fix solutions, the fear is that this violence could continue indefinitely.
Emma Louise, many thanks for that. A 70-year-old British man has been jailed in America for trying to sell a missile to an undercover FBI agent. Hemant Lakhani from North London was sentenced to 47 years. He was arrested in 2003 after trying to sell a missile to an agent posing as a Somali terrorist. Scientists say they developed a pill that can fight the common cold. The new drug combines vitamins with friendly bacteria. Volunteers had milder symptoms and were unwell for an average of 2 days less than those taking ordinary multivitamins. Sadly, though, it doesn't appear to prevent colds, so keep those hankies handy. Spain is the top theft hotspot for British holidaymakers. Over a third of Britons who've fallen victim to crime overseas have done so in Spain. This is followed closely by France, Italy and Greece. Overall, more than 1 in 10 Brits have experienced petty theft. Now, we may get excited about celebrities giving their children exotic names like Apple, Brooklyn and Romeo. And Britney Spears is even said to be naming her firstborn London. But would you call your child Friday Screech, Talent Ferret or Obedience Budge? Well, the National Archives list over 1,000 names from the 1700s, which could give celebs a few ideas. Well, let's hope not. Perhaps Gentle Fudge, Abraham Thunderwolf or even Philadelphia Bunnyface. I think it's those second names are brilliant. It is 8 minutes past 6. I'm back at 5:30. It's Penny and Sean.
Yeah, I've never heard of anybody called Bunnyface before.
Bunnyface Smith.
Great. Bunnyface Smith. Or what, you mean that would be my surname? For excellent.
It's Romeo and Brooklyn look positively ordinary, doesn't it? Let's have a look at the morning papers. Believe it or not, 1 or 2 papers do regard something more important than the Ashes. More important than the Ashes victory. The Guardian, for example, leads on doubts over the value of Sure Start, saying a major evaluation of the government's flagship £3 billion programme for deprived preschool children is now in question. And in the Times, petrol panic begins to spread as oil prices rise.
Right, let's just have a look at all the puns that they've come up with. Actually, that one hasn't gone for a pun. The Daily Mail, their hours. The Sun has fantastic, sounding a bit like Sean Connery. The Daily Mail, Daily Mirror rather, incredible, and the Daily Express on top of the world. The petrol may be running out, but let's celebrate England's Ashes victory.
So, as though you need telling, after 16 years, the oldest prize in cricket is back in English hands. And we're going to discuss it the Daily Mirror's Oliver Holt, who was there watching with 23,000 others yesterday. Fantastic day. Does this mean we're the best in the world?
Well, that's a very good question. I think no, I think is the short answer. I think we've got a few more things to prove. We've got tours to Pakistan and India coming up this winter. I think we need to win there, and then we're going back to Australia next year, the end of next year, and that's going to be another fantastic series. If we win there, if we have success over those three tours, then I think we can call ourselves the best in the world. But let's not forget that Australia, who've been a magnificent side, have proved that they're the best consistently. I think just beating the best doesn't necessarily mean you're the best.
No, great victory nevertheless, and we owe a great deal to a South African, don't we really? Kevin Peterson, who played out of his skin yesterday to cause celebrations like the ones we're seeing on the screen right now.
Yeah, no, he was magnificent. 6 sixes, I think. Somebody in my paper called him a six maniac, which I thought was quite a nice pun. And he was brilliant, because he came in at a point where the match was in the balance, to be frank, and Shane Warne again was working his magic, and Peterson, who was a big mate of Shane Warne, a Hampshire colleague, just really took the attack to Shane Warne and hit him for a couple of massive sixes, and that really just totally changed the complexion of the game.
You know, one of the things I enjoyed most yesterday, and I have done actually throughout the series, although there's been a bit of feeling between the two teams. Yesterday, the first person to congratulate Peterson was the aforementioned Shane Warne, and the spirit in which the whole game was conducted, right to the very end, where they all shook hands, hugged each other, commiserated or congratulated, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, the spirit has been tremendous. I agree with you. I think that's been the best thing about the series. And for me, it was encapsulated, actually. It existed with the crowd as well, in that Shane Warne was on the boundary, dropped a catch off Peterson, which actually was a crucial catch, and it was cruel because he's been one of the best players in the whole series. The crowd was shouting, Warney dropped the Ashes, and then he was clearly rather downcast about this. Yeah. And then they started shouting, we only wish you were English. And the whole, you know, it's played in that whole spirit, even with the crowd. You know, there's a respect for people like Warne and McGrath, who everybody respects for being great cricketers, and it's the end for them, really, effectively now, certainly in English, on English Test venues. So it was great to see them at their peak.
We can only hope that some of our prima donna footballers take a leaf out of their book, but I doubt whether they will. Australia they're a fairly senior side, and particularly after this setback. Big rethink, big inquest there, do you think?
Well, they're going back home with a lot of questions to ask of a lot of their players, and as I say, they have been a magnificent side, but just off the top of your head, Matthew Hayden, the question marks against him, one of the openers, Adam Gilchrist, who's been such a fantastic player, has had an awful series with the bat, and I suppose most pertinently Shane Warne and Glenn McGrath have been probably their two best players.
Who we'll miss, let's face it. I mean, fantastic characters and superb players.
Warne in particular, I think. I mean, McGrath's been a metronome, but Warne has got such dynamism and character and such genius. I mean, again, an overused word, but the guy, leading wicket taker ever in Test matches. Yeah. We will miss him badly.
Well, congratulations to England, and let's, as you say, pat Australia on the back. They were fantastic opponents, and the game played in terrific spirit. Oliver, thanks very much indeed for being with us.
Welcome.
Fantastic opponents, but they did lose.
They did lose,
sadly.
exactly. Only just.
The time is 12 minutes past 6. Now, don't panic is the message to motorists this morning after many garages ran out of petrol because of widespread panic buying. Can anything now be done to stop 3 days of protests, and are we about to see the kind of stockpiling that we saw back in 2000? Well, Jackie Cabb is at a petrol station in South Wales, and Jackie, they're queuing there already, aren't they?
Can you believe it? I know, I really wasn't expecting that, Penny. These queues started to build up about 5 o'clock this morning, and they're coming right off the forecourt, going all the way down, and they're actually going right round that corner down to the main road, which is just quite extraordinary at this hour of the morning. Now, there is actually no petrol shortage at the moment. That's the ironic thing. But because people are panic buying, garage owners have been telling me that is what is going to cause a shortage. Now, it was similar scenes here yesterday, massive queues stretching all the way down the road, and we've also got pictures from elsewhere in the country, for example, Manchester, where we saw similar queues, people just queuing for over half an hour to an hour to get petrol. Now, of course, yesterday was one of our last sunny days of the year before winter sets in. And many of the people that I spoke to in the queue here were very resentful at having to waste their time queuing and very unhappy that we were seeing those scenes of 2000 repeated all over again. This is what just a few of them had to say.
It's an absolute nightmare. Just fuel up every night for the next day, and then you've got people going a bit crazy, panicking, and what can you do about it? You just got to stay in line.
It was just exactly the same as before, you know, when the prices got so high and everyone panicked.
It's a bit frustrating sitting here half an hour in this beautiful weather when I could be at home with the kids, yeah.
Well, Gordon Brown has completely ruled out dropping the tax on fuel, so it seems the fuel lobby protest will start as planned tomorrow morning, planned to go on from 6 o'clock tomorrow morning until Friday evening. They're going to do a go-slow on the M4, they'll be blockading refineries around the country and possibly even blocking the port of Dover. So I think, Penny, we can expect to see the queues behind me getting worse over the next few days and not better.
Yes, maybe we could actually ask people if they've got 3/4 of a tank of petrol, please stop filling up with just 2 gallons or 3 gallons. It's just so pointless. Thank you very much, Jackie.
Richard Haddock, who led some of the biggest fuel protests back in 2000, joins me now and is also behind some of the campaigning that's going on at the moment. As I understand it, actually, they're not planning to blockade. Nevertheless, the likes of people like yourself who've said you want to mount some kind of protest, I have to say, are the cause of those panic queues, aren't you?
Realistically not, because I only got involved on Friday. I've kept very quiet and kept in the background on this one, monitoring what's going on. And the only reason I've got involved is because the general public, the people in the street, and really shocked me, my sister in my local doctor's surgery said, when the hell are you going to do something?
Yeah, but you're calling for people to go onto forecourts at the weekend.
Yes, what I'm
Again, which alarms people. You may not be calling for a blockade, but that alarms people, and that causes the ridiculous queuing up for petrol when there's no shortage, and there won't be a shortage if people just act sensibly.
I agree with you on that, but what we're asking for is not for blockades of fuel refineries, anything like that. We do not want to disrupt the country. What I'm asking for is the general electorate, the voter out there, to vote on Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, either this Sunday or next Sunday, to be decided for half an hour and half an hour only to go to their forecourts.
But what's the point? What are you protesting about? I mean, you can't blame the government for this. The government haven't increased duty. In fact, their share of the amount of money they take per litre has actually fallen rather than gone up.
I totally disagree with you there.
Well, it's true.
Look at VAT. That's where we're on about a lot of us. For every 20 pence a litre, fuel goes up. 4 pence, that is VAT. The government, but the government have refused to move the VAT. That is damaging us all. Yes, the actual fuel escalator has worked since our last protest. They're holding that part there, but it still rises on a percentage day in, day out.
You must accept it is not ultimately something that Gordon Brown can himself... This is a global problem, isn't it?
It is a global problem, but Gordon Brown and this Prime Minister keep shouting about global warming. They are ignoring resources that can be grown in this country, biofuels, bioethanols, which other countries in Europe are growing now, and supporting their fuel industry on that way, and cleaning the environment at the same time.
Do you think it really will be an effective protest? I mean, you've got this guy in the northeast calling for people to turn up and protest at oil refineries, not blockade, I should stress. And you call it on Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, you calling for protests on forecourts at the weekend. It seems a rather cack-handed, sort of half-hearted protest. So like the last two were a complete flop, weren't they?
This has been done exactly as the very first one, not the last flops, as you say, when the general public did it. We were just spokespeople. There's no big leaders out there. It's the general public. It's up to them to make a clear message to this government, not me, not anybody else.
Do you seriously think Gordon Brown's going to take any notice at all? He's not going to reduce fuel duty just because some of you go and stand on a forecourt in Devon, is he?
It'll be interesting to see this time, because it's not just us. Your bills at home will be going up this autumn. Your gas, your electric, everything is being punished this time. And remember, at the moment, this government is shipping billions of gallons of petrol to America and not telling anybody. That's causing a lot of the shortages.
Well, I didn't know that. If that's true, I did not know that. Thank you very much indeed. We'd like to know what you at home think about this. Have you say? We're asking, do you support the fuel protest? So far, 88% of you do, 12% of you don't. And if you're behind the protests, call 09068 745 745 to register your vote. If you think they're a waste of time, call a slightly different number, 09068 745 746, and we'll keep you up to date on how that poll is going throughout this morning's programme. And for more information on how to find the cheapest fuel in your area, visit our website, gm.tv.
Time is 18 minutes past 6. Now, more and more teachers are being physically assaulted by parents. The National Association of Head Teachers says there are 2 such violent attacks every week. We'll be speaking to the head of the union in a moment, but first we're joined from our Bristol studio by former assistant head teacher Phil Baker. Good morning. I understand you actually left your post after being attacked by a parent.
That's correct, Penny. I had a parent who came into school and I sought to resolve the issue. I thought I'd resolved it, and then the husband of the mother suggested he wanted to see another colleague of mine in the car park. I suggested to him that wasn't the place we held meetings, at which he leapt at me. I had to rush through 2 security doors and barricade myself in an office.
And in fact, he still managed to break down one of the doors, didn't he?
That's right, and pulled it off the hinge. and it left me with post-traumatic stress disorder, which I had to have treatment for 15 months.
Yeah, hardly surprisingly. What actually happened to the parent who went for you?
He went to court, and I believe he had a conditional discharge after the incident, which didn't exactly go down well with me.
Yes, I was just going to ask you how you felt about his punishment. Do you think that teachers are offered enough protection by the courts?
I don't believe many magistrates realise the seriousness of what happens and the damage it does to a teacher. A police officer, for example, when they deal with stressed out people, they are well protected. As teachers, we don't have protection, and we are having to face them when often they're extremely irate and upset, often not necessarily to do with school, but against authority.
Right, so it actually wasn't about you per se, it was actually about, everything.
In this particular case, it was over a pair of trainers that the teacher had objected to the child wearing. I had sought to resolve the issue for the parent, and it was the sort of issue that should not have become a big issue, but this father seemed to want to make it a major, major issue.
And do you think that this problem is getting worse?
From my colleagues still in teaching, incidents seem to be on the increase. The ones officially reported never reveal the true extent of it. But it certainly seems over the last 10, 15 years to have got worse since the phrase parent power was first introduced. And parents seem to come into the school thinking they have absolute rights, and they expect you to jump to their whim. They expect you to do this, that and the other. And this can cause major stress on teachers, because you're trying to get on with your job, you're there because you care about the children, but at the same time you know that it needs good order in the school.
Phil, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much for talking to us and telling us your experiences. With me now, the head of the National Association of Head Teachers, Mick Brooks. So Phil was saying that it seems to be on the increase. Presumably this is something you hear about quite often.
We're very concerned, and I think Phil's experience is one reason that we feel we need to do something about this. If you go into a pub and misbehave, you can get thrown out and banned. And there are posters on National Railway and in hospitals. Schools seem to be the last place where people think they can come and misbehave, which is quite shocking, really, when you think about it, and the children in there. And some, mainly parents, who think that they can come in and be violent and abusive to their teacher in front of children. So we've said we should do something about this.
And you have done something about it. You've got a poster campaign.
That's coming out, yes. That's be coming out in the next few weeks. And it would be nice if schools felt that they didn't have to put it up. But in some schools, I think they really do need to do that.
So what does it actually say on the poster?
It's really saying that we welcome visitors in this school. However, if you are violent and abusive to our staff, then there will be consequences. Now, I'd like
Although it doesn't sound very much like there's particularly bad consequences,
exactly
does it?
right, and that's something I'd like to take up, because I think that the consequences for coming into school and being violent and abusive should be far greater than, for instance, going to a pub and misbehaving, because these are our children. So what are people doing, thinking that that's okay?
Why do you think it's got worse?
I think there are a number of reasons. I think in the early 90s, schools were seen as fair game, and there's a lot of negative press about schools and their standards, and I think that gave some parents the view that they had a right to go in and complain and be abusive in school. And we're still getting, indeed at the beginning of this term, a lot of negative press about the standards of our schools, where in fact the reality is that exam standards have never been higher, and pupils in English schools are amongst the best in the world at their own language.
Mick Brooks, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
OK, time now 23 minutes past 7. Still to come here on the News Hour. We're live down under to find out how the Aussies are licking their wounds. And Penny does something she's always dreamed of doing.
Yes.
The mind boggles, doesn't it? Hang on.
Go roofwards now, as the trapeze artists go through their nerve-wracking routine.
Ever since I was a little girl, the one thing I've always wanted to do was to go on the trapeze. And here I am, appropriately dressed and ready to go.
My helpers, Lucy, Adam and Nick. What can I expect?
You might rip your hands.
Well, you could get some nice burns on the backs of your legs.
But you're going to love it.
Good. Well, let's go then.
Well,
OK, we just need to lose the outfit.
yeah.
That's it, put your left foot on the bar. That's it, OK?
Happy with that.
Yeah?
Not quite as comfy as hanging from the old apple tree.
I'm not sure now. I'm having second thoughts.
Keep that bum up.
I think it's my bottom's too big.
No, it's not.
It just won't go anywhere.
When you get up onto the platform, you take the rope and you hold on when you're up there at all times. OK with that?
Yeah.
Oh, bless your heart.
My heart is going like the clappers.
Ready?
Yes.
1, 2, 3, and jump. Yay! Good. 1, 2, 3, let go. Feet down.
That was fantastic. That was so exciting. It's so exciting.
I'm going to be up on the cradle.
Yeah.
And just as you pass this point, I leave her out until I'm out like this, and I will grab the backs of your calves.
Feet and kick. You okay?
Yeah, it's not like when you're a kid on the swing and you're trying to get it over the top.
Yep, and you're out of control.
You're out of control, and actually, you know you shouldn't. I'm quite exhausted. My arms are coming out of their sockets, so whatever happens with this is the last one. No pressure then.
Massive jump.
Sorry, Nick.
That's okay. We have a rip.
You see, I am.
You are a flying trapeze artist.
A flying
We've had
trapeze
a fall,
artist.
We've had a rip.
I've had such a brilliant, brilliant morning. It's been superb. What an experience. Now, what about these hands?
Well, I have to
And
say...
never use them again.
I take... Let's have a look at them now.
Well, no, they have finally, after 3 weeks.
Yeah.
The scars have actually healed,
That
but it was 3 weeks
that
before
was
they
very
all went.
painful.
My hands, all the blisters ripped on the top as well, and of course I also had all my toes all got slightly mashed as well from crash landing.
And what it
rather long, because I did it about what 12 times or something.
Well, what it demonstrates, you're pretty fit because you do yoga, so it demonstrates that it is extremely hard.
I don't know why I thought I was just going to float through the air with the greatest of ease, and of course there you are. What you don't realise is that when you actually jump off the platform there, you're pulling 4 Gs. So in other words, you are holding the equivalent of, or I'm holding the equivalent of a very small elephant just on my hands.
So you have to be very strong.
On that tiny little wooden bar, and I'm just not strong enough in the upper body, just like lots of women aren't who don't, you know, unless you're trained for it. Anyway, it was a wonderful dream, and it was marvellous, and I did thoroughly enjoy it.
And good on you for trying. And it's not just about Penny's dream coming true this morning, because Richard Arnold is out and about. He's going to be making one of your dreams come true. We'll see him a little bit later on.
But now, here's Claire with the weather.
GMTV weather, sponsored by Tops Tiles, brightening homes, whatever the weather.
Hello, good morning. Now, autumn certainly has come to Western Scotland and the far north of Northern Ireland today, because it's going to be very wet indeed, and also very windy, with a lot of thick cloud covering this area here. If we go under the cloud, you can see a thin cloud. In fact, we are seeing some sunshine this morning, just coming through now across England and Wales. 1 or 2 mist patches, but even so, not too bad at all. The difference, though, as we head north is absolutely amazing. It really is. Strong winds and copious amounts of rain. It's going to be raining heavily across Western Scotland right the way through the day. So let's have a look and see what's happening weather-wise this morning. You can see where the cloud is stretching across much of Scotland, clipping Northern Ireland. Further south, it's fine. It's dry with some sunshine. Watch out for the fog. This is the situation this afternoon. You can see this rain will continue across the Highlands and the islands. 4 inches of rain likely across these parts here, and also very strong winds causing some flooding. But further east, you are seeing a little bit of rain this morning, but that will eventually clear, and in fact you see little bits and pieces through the day. If we head further south though, I think places such as northeast England getting away perhaps with some dry weather. It could be a little bit damp this morning, but even so, some dry weather through the afternoon. But hopping over the mountains, the hills, you can see some heavy rain to come, and also some heavy rain for the far north of Northern Ireland. But places such as Belfast getting away with some dry weather. For Wales, it's going to be fine and dry rain with some sunshine, as well as the Midlands and all seas staying clear. Temperatures 24 Celsius here, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Similar situation for the southeast. Enjoy the weather whilst you can, because sadly it is all going to change over the next few days. Watch out for some mist and murk across the north coast of Devon as well as Cornwall, but elsewhere, lovely sunshine. Here's your summary. For your in-depth local outlook, visit our website, or for a 10-day forecast, call GMTV's weatherline on 0905 514 0000.
Good morning, it's a smidge after 6:30, Tuesday the 13th of September.
Yes, you're watching the news hour here on GMTV in the next half hour. Who has the best sense of humour in the UK? Well, apparently, Liverpudlians are the funniest, and the Welsh most certainly are not. Let us know your favourite jokes, the clean ones that is, and where they come from. Text us on 81189 or email us at gm.tv.
Yeah, it's the sort of joke we're looking for, like, what do you call a rabbit with no ears?
What do you call a rabbit with no ears, Penny?
Anything he can't hear you.
That's it.
We will be giving you another chance to win a dream holiday apartment in the sun as well. But our top story today may have taken 16 years, but this morning England's cricketers are celebrating after winning back the Ashes. Jonathan Swain's at the hotel in the City of London where the team are staying. And Jonathan, any sightings of them coming in or out in any state at all?
Not just yet, Penny. I've just about found the only bottle of full champagne in this hotel. The players have certainly been making the most of their celebrations. Nobody would begrudge them that. They left this bar just a couple of hours ago. Apparently a handful of them are still drinking in the penthouse bar upstairs. So any second now we could see them come through that door into the breakfast room, which has been decked out rather splendidly in St George's crosses here this morning. When they sit down at the table to have breakfast, well, they were reading the headlines that we could only dream about, really, at the start of the summer. We were with the team last night as they arrived from the grounds here at the hotel. They came in here for a quick freshen up after spending all day at the Oval, winning that historic win against Australia yesterday, of course. Then they went straight out for a party in a nightclub in central London. And just before they went into a club, I spoke to the man of the moment and the man of the match, really, Kevin Peterson, who scored a fantastic 158 yesterday. He was certainly on cloud nine.
We're going to have a sensational night. We're going to celebrate long and hard for about 2 weeks.
And what have the team got planned today, Jonathan?
Well, Penny, when they have a shower and a freshen up and plenty of coffee, they should be on an open-top bus this morning for a celebratory open-top bus parade through London. They'll start at Mansion House at 11:10. It'll take them through Cannon Street, St Paul's, Fleet Street, the Strands. They'll end up at Trafalgar Square at around 12:30, where our correspondent Richard Gated is this morning. And morning to you, Richard.
Yes, good morning, Jonathan. Well, they've been working hard here in the square all night. The riggers and technicians have been putting up the giant sound system, the screens and the stage for this big event here today. They're going to need the screens to entertain the thousands of people who are expected here. They'll show the highlights of the Ashes series to whip them into something of a frenzy for when the team arrive at 12:30. Michael Vaughan will take to the stage and show that very small Ashes urn. In fact, they'll need the big screens just to get everyone a good shot of that. And then we think they're going to head down towards Downing Street to meet the Prime Minister before heading off towards Lord's, where there's some sort of ceremony there, giving the Ashes back to the MCC and saying, keep it safe for the 2 years, and hopefully when we head off to Australia, we'll have it again.
Richard, thank you very much. And Jonathan, I know you said you hadn't seen any of the crew around and about, but apparently Kevin Peterson has been seen in West London. Sorry, I was just... Sorry? No, Kevin Peterson. We were just about to see a picture of Kevin Peterson.
This is after the interview.
Who was seen...
Very funny.
Sorry. Oh, yes, I can hear that.
I'm very flattered you think I look like Kevin Peterson, a rather handsome chap. No, I thought I was hesitating because we'd just seen him briefly interviewed by Jonathan.
Yes, I know, I'm
when you were busy engaged on something else.
Sorry.
Let's move
sorry,
on
it was a
really...
sorry, it was a rubbish joke. I'm not from Liverpool, sorry.
It is my turn, I think. Good morning. Motorists are being urged not to panic by ahead of planned fuel tax protests, as queues of up to an hour are reported at some petrol stations. Some garages are warning they may run out of fuel if demand continues at the same rate. Protesters from the fuel lobby have given ministers until today to meet them or face 3 days of demonstrations starting from tomorrow. Police are questioning an 18-year-old man in connection with the death of 2 teenagers in Berkshire. The 18-year-old was one of 2 youths arrested close to the spot in Wokingham, where 16-year-old Stephen Bayliss and his 14-year-old neighbour Tawood Nadal were killed on Sunday evening. The second man has been released. An appeal by the suspected Shepherd's Bush bomber against extradition to Britain is due to be heard in Rome today. Hussein Osman is alleged to have tried to blow up a tube train on July the 21st. Last month, an Italian court granted a request for him to be returned to the UK for trial. Drinking, smoking and stress could be leading to infertility in millions of British men. A report out today says 2.5 million men could be suffering poor fertility. A survey of doctors has also found that almost half of men are more worried about the financial problems of raising a child than their ability to father one. From today, doctors can prescribe a new pill that cuts the risk of breast cancer returning. Aromacin will be used by women who've already been treated with the standard drug tamoxifen. Trials have shown that switching to Aromacin cuts the chances of cancer returning by an extra 30%. A top US official has resigned after severe criticism of the response to Hurricane Katrina. Michael Brown says he's stepping down as director of the Federal Emergency Management Agency in the interests of the organisation and the president. As a massive cleanup effort in New Orleans continues, the death toll has now passed 500. Now, we may get excited about celebrities giving their children exotic names like Apple, Brooklyn and Romeo. And even Britney Spears is said to be naming her firstborn London. But would you call your child Friday Screech, or Talent Ferret, or Obedience Budge? Well, the National Archives list of over 1,000 names from the 1700s could give celebs a few ideas. Perhaps Gentle Fudge, or Abraham Thunderwolf, or even Philadelphia Bunnyface. Fine names. It is 6:37. Our next news bulletin is at 7. Here's John and Penny.
Or otherwise known as Ferocious Stapleton.
Or Penelope Bunnyface, I like that one.
That's a good one.
Now then, all this week we're giving you the chance to win a holiday home in the sun.
We've already got one finalist and we've got 4 places left. The home's worth £90,000. It's yours for keeps. Here's Keith Chegwin.
We're giving you the chance to win your very own holiday home worth over £90,000, courtesy of Parador Properties. It's a 2-bedroomed apartment with a balcony overlooking the Costa Blanca. The prize is just down the road from the beach on a development with landscape gardens and shared pools. It also comes fully furnished, and there'll be 4 runner-up prizes of, wait for it, £1,000 each. What is sangria? A, something you drink, B, something you wear, or C, something you eat.
You can dial 09068 100 100. That's 09068 100 100. Or you can text A, B or C as your answer, plus your name and full address to 81149. Or you can enter via the website.
As usual, lines open until 9 this morning, and Lorraine will pick the next finalist before 9:25.
Lorraine Standforth, which is now known. 6:38. Here's what's happening where you are.
Good morning. Welcome to the Breakfast News from ITV Granada. The family of Liverpool teenager Michael Shields will travel to London later for a meeting with Foreign Secretary Jack Straw. The 18-year-old's in a Bulgarian jail for the attempted murder of a waiter, despite another man confessing to the crime. His supporters hope the meeting will speed up his release.
It's sad to say I've had to deal with many of these situations. I'll listen very carefully to what the family has to say. We will do all we can. However, what I don't have is a key to the cell in which poor Michael is currently locked. And if the family think I've got that, they are bound to be disappointed.
Doctors in the northwest are warning that chronic lung diseases are fast becoming one of the biggest killers of women in the UK. Known as COPD, they'll soon claim more victims than breast cancer, as Kate Gifford reports.
Agnes Heitman's been a smoker since she was a teenager. She's just been diagnosed with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. She's constantly breathless and confined to a wheelchair.
I can't get out. I can't do the things that I usually want to do. I've got a 16 and a 14-year-old at home. I can't do things with them. I can't take them out. I can't go shopping. I can't even tidy up.
It's an increasing killer which is very poorly understood and recognised by the public at large. If we can persuade people to consider giving up smoking, they may save their lives.
My daughter's just started smoking and she's going to get it when I go home because she's not going to smoke anymore. You know, because I don't want her to go through what I'm going through, you know. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
COPD kills 12,000 a year and rates are rising fast. Experts warn it could soon become the UK's biggest killer of women.
Liverpool are in Champions League action tonight. Rafa Benitez's men will continue the defence of their title in the group stages of the competition against Spanish minnows Real Betis. Peter Crouch, who made his debut for the Reds against Tottenham on Saturday, is tipped to start. Now to Fred's novelty idea for charity that's got everybody talking. Last week we bottled some Studio 2 air and have put it onto the internet auction website eBay. The bidding's been fierce and the highest offer now stands at more than £900. To date, the site has received a staggering 10,000 hits. That's it for now. I'm back at 7:05. Time now for a look at the region's weather.
Brighten someone's day with a card and gift from Clinton's.
After a misty start, the skies will brighten and most places will have a fine morning. This afternoon there may be some cloud and drizzle, but most places will enjoy hazy sunshine. Time is 6:41. You're watching the News Hour on GMTV. Now, there are already nationwide reports of panic buying of petrol. That's the picture at Newport in South Wales this morning at 6:41.
Yeah, and we're asking you whether you agree with the planned fuel protests, which are due to start tomorrow. So far, 93% of you do, 7% of you don't.
And if you're behind the protests, the numbers to call 09068 745 745. If you think the protests are a waste of time, the vote number is 09068 745 746. All the newspapers this morning have cricket, and that's the front page of the Daily Mail, talking about the Ashes, their hours. Incredible, talking about the Ashes urn coming back, and the Sun, fantastic. Kevin Peterson, definitely the hero. He's been getting a hard time about his hairdo in the papers, but we think it's the next big thing in fashion, and
yes,
that's the sort of thing that's going to be going down well in West London. England finally did it, winning an Ashes series for the first time since 1987. The final day just as dramatic as the series as a whole, once again keeping fans on the edge of their seat. Here's how it happened.
Just a little chance with a smart low catch from one. Doesn't roll that quick. Got good hands of Shea Warne. That's a big miss. Huge hit. Mambo number 5. Sean Tater's back.
Jump up and down and move it all around. Shake your hand to the sound, put your hands on the ground. Take one step left and one step right. One to the front and one to the side.
Incredible scenes.
Incredible scenes which we waited for ages. Had we won? Had we not? Yes, we definitely had. Were the Australians going in? Yes, they were. No, they weren't. And in a moment, we'll be speaking to legendary England cricket commentator Henry Blofeld and Australian sports journalist Tony Jones, just swatting up at the moment. First, we're going to talk about the commercial prospects for these new England stars. With me is the former editor of Hello magazine, Phil Hall. Good morning to you. So, who do you think is going to come off best in this?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? This headline, Earn Credible, could be Earn EARN, because there's going to be huge earning capacities for people like Freddie Flintoff now and Matthew Vaughan, and they have books. And Kevin Peterson, indeed, yeah. They've all got books lined up, which I think previously we would have expected to see good sales on. Now there'll be phenomenal sales. And you'll see them moving from the newspapers into magazines like Hello magazine and OK magazine. So absolutely, their earning potential is going to be huge.
So are we talking about adverts or sponsorship deals, what?
I think right across the board. I think the sort of clean-cut image that cricket's got at the moment is going to be very, very rewarding for sponsors, and I think, yeah, right across the board.
Oh yeah, I think I can see Freddie Flintoff advertising some kind of razor item, can't you? Something.
It's not going to be moisturiser, is it?
No,
it's going to be the good He-Man image.
Although they should wear moisturiser, being out in the hot summer sun.
No, you don't understand cricket. This is a hard, tough game.
They probably do wear moisturiser. I hope they do, because otherwise your skin just gets so old and leathery.
Maybe there's a potential for a sponsorship there. You're right.
Yeah. So are we talking about the sort of deals, for example, that the Rugby World Cup heroes got?
Absolutely. I think in many ways greater, because we've seen this so intense, this battle for 3 or 4 months now, and I think they've been front page news have been talking about, whereas the rugby was there and gone in 2 weeks. So I think this has been sustainable, and I think it will go on. Yes.
Although, do you think it will continue if we lose the Ashes next time around in 2 years' time?
Come on, we've got to enjoy the win first.
No, I'm just wondering about how long
it will
you
be
think.
sustainable, because I think there's the books, and I think Freddie Flintoff will unquestionably win Sportsman of the Year. It's going to be a one-man race, as it was.
And they've got very glamorous wives as well.
They have, and you can see already Rachel's been sort of in there, hasn't she, with sponsorship deal from the lottery, and yeah, absolutely, there's going to be huge interest in them.
Yeah.
And I think you'll see them appearing on TV shows, quiz shows, say magazines, and also the books.
Do you think Beckham and co should be worried about
I
their
don't think they should be
sponsorship
too
deals?
worried, actually, because I think there's still different earning capacities there.
Well, Phil, thank you very much for joining us. John.
Thanks very much indeed, Penny. You're joining us now, the England team cricket commentator Henry Blofeld, and down under, Aussie sports journalist Tony Jones. Very good morning to you both. Henry, what a day, and I suspect what a night.
Well, my dear everything, it's unbelievable, wasn't it? I mean, if Agatha Christie linked arms with John le Carré, they couldn't have come up with this, could they?
Absolutely fantastic. Well, I mean, the finest Test series of all time, I suspect.
Oh, I think so, yes. I mean, I remember England beating the West Indies by 1-0 in 67-8. I always thought that was the greatest ever, but this absolutely eclipsed it. And really, it came, that one in the West Indies didn't come up much more than ankle high to this one.
Indeed not. Let's go on to Tony Jones down under. Tony, I guess you're licking your wounds. What's the reaction there to this defeat?
Well, look, I've got to say, we haven't had this much fun in Australia since we all had our wisdom teeth removed without anaesthetic, I think. But no, it's been one of those. It's been one of those nights, I've got to say, where we all sat up in hope, and they gave us a little bit of hope there at the start, but then it just all flitted away. And to hear Henry and the like just wallow in the glory is just like going right through our hearts.
I'll bet it has, mate, I'll bet. But I'll give you this. You were tough opposition, and you were good opposition. It was played in a great spirit, wasn't it, the game?
Oh, please, please, don't patronise us in this hour of need. I mean...
Come on, we've got to savour every moment, Tony.
Make the most of it. Savour every moment. I'll tell you what, the knives are already about to go in down here. Don't worry about that. Some of the newspapers are... well, I'll just show you some of the headlines if I can, John. There's one there. Now, keeping in mind that a lot of our newspapers went to print before the dark hour finally struck, and that one there is Peterson Mayhem, so the writing was on the wall pretty early there. The national newspaper, The Australian, also goes Peterson, but this one, and this is the one that most people are talking about in Australia, and that is the drop catch by Shane Warne. So as much and all as Warney is a national hero, a lot of people shaking their heads in disbelief over that drop catch. So the afternoon edition, and that's the only one we have, has just come out, and I think that one sums it up pretty well. They earned it.
Well, very, very good of them to concede that point, Tony. I have to say, I must stick to my point, though, Henry. One of the things that impressed me most of all, watching particularly this last game, was the fantastic spirit the game was played in. The first person to congratulate Peterson when he was out was Shane Warne, and at the end they all hugged each other, commiserated or congratulated. I wish footballers would do the same now and again, don't you?
Well, yes, I do. And wasn't it wonderful the way Ponting and Warne spoke about the England players afterwards? I thought it was absolutely terrific. But nonetheless, we have got them. We haven't had them for something like 19 years. And I'll tell you something, John. Bucks Fizz has never tasted as good as it does now.
I'll bet. And I'll bet you something else, Henry. I bet it's not the first this morning either. Anyway, the question
I
is...
don't answer that, or you'll be talking to Max Clifford.
Yes. The question is, Henry, I mean, is this going to do the game any good? I mean, we always say, oh, it's stimulated a lot of interest, and then it all fades off again. But do you think this time around kids will take up cricket, take more interest?
Oh, yes, I think people will go into the park, kids, and they'll want to be Freddie and no longer Bex. At least that's what I hope, and I think this is sustainable because we've had a terrific 2-month run of this. And really, the winter after next, England go out to Australia for the Ashes battle again. And I think it's going to last to then at least. And if we win in Australia, then it's going to go on and on. And it's given the game the most fantastic boost. And I think the clean-cut image of cricket is so important. And I think this will attract even more people to it.
Well, we certainly hope so. Henry, many, many thanks for staying sober, apart from anything else. And Tony, thank you very much indeed. Thanks very much indeed to you down under.
The time is now 10 to 7. You're watching the news hour here on GMTV. There's been more lawlessness on the streets of Belfast, following on from the awful scenes of rioting and violence over the weekend. Well, our correspondent Emma Louise Johnson is there for us this morning. How is it now, Emma Louise?
Good morning, Penny. Well, it's fairly calm this morning, but overnight police officers came under attack yet again from loyalist mobs, being hit with petrol bombs and fireworks throughout the city. In North Belfast, a police officer was knocked unconscious when he was hit on the head with a brick. Now, of course, this all started on Saturday when an Orange Order parade was rerouted away from a Catholic area. And I think it's important to say that sometimes lost in the mix, there are families trying to bring up their children when all hell breaks loose. Now, I spoke to one family, the Campbells from West Belfast. They were getting ready to put their little boy Jack, who's only 3, to bed on Saturday night when the violence that had erupted throughout the city spilled into their home. Now, this was absolutely terrifying for them. They were sitting, as I say, watching television with their little boy in their living room when this violence spilled into their home, when a bullet was fired through their living room window. Now, this is very upsetting for a mum and dad, but just think how that must have affected their little boy. And I think it's very concerning that this is just one family, lucky to be alive, one of many, though, directly affected by this current violence.
Emma Louise, thank you very much for talking to us this morning and giving us the update on that situation.
Yeah, thanks also for all your text messages and emails, particularly regarding the petrol protests. Some mixed opinions, really, on this. People are only panic buying petrol because of all the media coverage, that's a fair point, and the proposed protest this week. That's an anonymous text. And another one saying they hope they do protest on Sunday on the forecourts, as suggested earlier in the programme, because this is from someone actually in the petrol business, because they're shut.
Now, there's also one from Peter from Dumfries, who says, my question is, why don't the fuel protesters target the big oil companies by boycotting their forecourts and buy from smaller retailers, thus causing a price war? In Dumfries, when one petrol station puts up its price within hours, all the others do the same, including many of the petrol companies. It has been investigated, but it was deemed to be found there was no price fixing.
Yeah, it does happen, you know, time and time again when we have these situations. Just think of the poor people working in petrol stations as I do. We are run ragged. That's another anonymous text. So keep your calls coming. You know, the usual numbers. We'll put them up on the screen a little bit later on for you, whether you are for or against these protests, which are scheduled to start anyway on Wednesday, running through to Friday.
The time is now 8 minutes to 7. Who makes you laugh? According to new research, Liverpudlians are the funniest people in Britain. We've been putting that to the test this morning.
We have indeed.
Why couldn't the bicycle stand up?
Don't know why couldn't the bicycle stand up.
It was too tight.
Why did everyone like the mushroom?
Why did everyone like the mushroom?
Because he was a fun guy.
What's the Wind's favourite game? Don't know what's the Wind's favourite game. Drafts!
Why was the pasty waiting on the corner?
Don't know why was the pasty waiting on the corner.
Because he was meat and potato.
Meat and potato.
Yes, there you are.
See, where do you find a tortoise with no legs? Where you left him.
Exactly, yes. Well, I have to say, I do think Liverpudlians have a very rich seam of humour in their lives. But one of the reasons being they're self-deprecating. They don't mind taking the mickey out themselves. So congratulations, Liverpool, on being the funniest people in the UK. If you're just waking up, papers, of course, full of their cricket. They're the headlines. They're ours. We're talking to you about the Ashes.
And we like that one there. Incredible. And their earning potential, as we've been finding out.
And on the Daily Star, Yabba Dabba done it. And
talking about Freddie Flintoff.
Of course.
Yeah.
Our hero. Well, along with Keith Peterson.
Well, all of them. Kevin Peterson, yes, exactly. Yes. But all the team. Done good.
Right, let's give you the numbers you can call if you have some views on these petrol protests planned for later in the week. Those are queues you can see down at Newport at the moment. Should stress that everyone's saying there need not be a petrol crisis if people stop queuing, but there doesn't seem to be paying much attention to that. So we're asking you whether you agree or disagree with those protests. These are the numbers to call. 93% of you so far say you do, 7% say you don't.
We get those numbers to call. If you are behind the protest, the number is 09068 745 745. If you think they're a waste of time, the vote number 09068 745 746. Yeah, I can't believe it, though. I bet some of them are actually only buying a gallon or two.
Well, that is always the case, and that's always the problem. And I think the lady who said that, you know, the media have some responsibility in this, or the person who said that, raised a very good point, because there were headlines the other day saying, you know, panic buying, when, frankly, I didn't see any evidence of panic buying. No. But, of course, once a headline appears, people start panic buying, and that's when the problem arises. We should stress, though, the protesters are saying they're not going to blockade the oil refineries, they're simply there to protest.
That's it from us for this morning. Fiona and Andrew are on the way with GMTV today.
Yes, they'll be rocking all over the studio with Status Quo. We're just about to arrive in Coronation Street, trading blows with Les Battersby.
Yeah, hit Coronation Street. Next, it's the weather with Claire.